Ladies and gentlemen, K Kim here. Welcome to the daily update. Hope you guys had a good day trading today. Market is up about 1% there on the S&P. I think the market was led by the Nasdaq and semiconductor. I think Nasdaq is close to 2% or something like that, maybe less. I know at one point they were up more than 2 point some percent on the Nasdaq, almost 3% on the semiconductor. We did see that fade towards the last hour, so I think some of those indices came back down, but around 1% across the board, market is up, and we kind of, we kind of knew from the last night's analysis that we're probably going to see some kind of bounce today, at least a oversold bounce. We talked about it yesterday. We did see that bounce, and also we talked about how this thing coming back to that level, that gap area, and definitely that's what we saw, that gap area acting as resistance there. There's some attempt to push higher, but again, short term being in that downtrend, there's some good push. It looks like in the first hour we saw very slight gap up here. It looked like it kind of tanked and then pushed back up after making lower low here, and then continued higher to the upside. And then you see that there was that micro term pivot. We held above that. Well, we were actually hanging around the second hour, just beneath it on the third hour. Finally, on the fourth hour, we pushed above that micro term pivot that has been acting as resistance here all yesterday, right? And then we saw follow through on the fifth hour here, and then you can see long upper wick. We pushed it as high as 333. On the last hour, we fizzled a little bit, and pretty much last like 3 minutes, we started seeing some people just kind of giving up on their longs or something like that. But it looks like we saw some selling pressure on the last hour, and that's that 6th hour candle there. So that's not a really pretty close, but obviously, we are in a short-term downtrend. So, I think buyers did make that, and this is at least what buyers could have done to kind of utilize and to take advantage of the situation where we were in an extreme oversold status, right? So let's zoom out here. And let's look at, so we're just looking at micro term. Let's check out that short term sense here, and kind of looking at overall what's going on in the short term. So, not a lot has changed. And so this was obviously yesterday here, and today we made that little move, but nothing has changed. We're still in that lower highs and lower lows here. We want to continue to give benefit of the doubt to the bears in the short term as we're continue to cultivate and establish downtrend here, right? So you can see it, that's that lower high there. It looks like I can even draw that downtrend from that peak there. So from here we can probably draw another fan line, and it looks like that's where we got that price rejection there, and also that level coinciding with the gap area. So again, that's why gaps are important to track, because that whole vicinity is going to be resistance, right? So that's why, we came up to that resistance, the gap resistance, and then that falling resistance, and that's the level we saw red candle. Throughout the entire day, we didn't see any red candles all day long. And then right there, it's not enough power, just because it's been weighted, it's heavy in the short term, and it favors the sellers. Let's go to midterm here. I think we get a little bit better idea if we look at the midterm. So what we talked about yesterday, looking at the midterm, so you can see that we got that higher high first of all. So that's a good sign in the midterm. We got that low. Is this going to be that higher low, right? And that's what we're trying to figure out here. And we also talked about it would have been better for the buyers if they would have cultivated that higher low somewhere in that vicinity, maybe 333. Somewhere here to find that higher low would have been much better. And then before going higher, The higher is actually better just because then we can continue, we can utilize that momentum that buyers have built up. Because this market kind of fell much lower, that momentum that was built here, late September through, mid-October, a lot of that momentum is gone now. So right now, what buyers trying to do is trying to stay alive, right? Not wanting the bears, making sure the bears do not make lower low here. Then all of that higher low, higher high cultivation, well, that's just going to be a waste of time, waste of energy for the buyers. Buyers cultivated that higher high here, so we want to continue in that fashion, in that manner. Again, I've used the scenario that we had back in, you can see right here, back in June, right here, right? And this is kind of the scenario. And you know what? That decline back in June, June, it was pretty severe, right? I mean, in one day, I remember just one day, this market fell 6%. Last time we saw anything like that was this time, June, right? 6%. And I remember a lot of people are freaking out, just flashback to what was going on in March with the COVID declines every single day. And so that was scary time, definitely, right? Back in June. But we were looking at this market objectively, right? Looking at in the short term, we're talking about, okay, we got these lower highs here and lower lows. But in the that's the short term. In the midterm of sense, well, bears really need to take out this low, right? Right there, to make that downtrend valid. So far, we do not have a lower low, and that's what we're talking about in June here and here. I'll put those analysis after this video in the outro so you can kind of rewatch that, and things were pretty heavy. Things were pretty hectic. You know what I mean? Things were pretty scary and fearful and scary headlines coming out, right? Some of these Twitter people, they're talking about 1929 again, right? Talking about dot-com crash again. That's here. We're seeing some massive declines here. But in the midterm sense, when it never breached below this low right here, we want it to be more neutral in the midterm, not so much bearish, right? So let's come back. So when we look at this here, what was happening today, same logic applies. Same logic applies, right? So looking at things in the midterm, right? Because in the long term, we're bullish. And I look at the long term, I'll do the long term analysis tomorrow for the weekend analysis, looking at the daily chart. But looking at this midterm right here, what you see on your screen, we, because we have that higher high and we haven't cultivated lower low yet, this could technically be that higher low, but we just don't know it yet how, right? So I think that will be the question. Is that 326? Is that the low before this thing getting back up here? Because that's what happened in June, towards late June. And what happened? Market went from 320 to 360, right? So bears are not out of the woods yet. Bulls still have that long-term momentum on their side. Short-term bearish. Midterm, more neutral. We're kind of in that neutral ground in the midterm. And that's what we're dealing with here. I tweeted out earlier today that it would have been, best case scenario for the buyers is that if they close near 332, gap up around 337, that would be the best case scenario. Well, now they went to 330. So that's a pretty significant gap now. I mean, that's got to be more than 2% gap up to make this into an island bottom. I mean, that will be the best case scenario for the buyers. Can jumpstart this thing, turn this into an island bottom, right? gap it up, and then go after this gap. That will be the most speedy way to kind of come out of this hecticness, right? Most efficient, expedited process to get out of it quickly, because we start fizzling here under 2 down gaps, right? Things could get hectic maybe for weeks, especially with the election coming up next week. People are already jittery about that. And with the price action at these levels, it's definitely a hectic environment. So we got one more day tomorrow for the month of October trading going into next week. We got a first week for the November of 2020 coming. Let's check out that oscillator here. So again, this is kind of what we're talking about yesterday. Extreme oversold. We only saw that happening 3 times in the last 2 months. September and October. Only 3 times, including today. That's early September, that's late September, mid to late, and that's here in late October. Only 3 times it happened, and every time we did see a bounce, next day, and that's what we saw today. But it never did become a bottom or the bottom, because we see that we did pull back next day. So are we following this script here? Where are we going to pull back next day? Or maybe a day or 2 later? Maybe doing some kind of double bottom like we saw here before this thing bottomed in September with that bullish divergence. We'll know more about it tomorrow. I'll come back for you guys and I will re-examine. And I do have an announcement. I will be gone traveling entire week next week. All next week. I know it's the election week, man. Kay, I need you. I get it. It was a hard decision to leave you guys behind, not able to do these daily videos, especially on the important week that is coming up next week. But I promise you, follow me at 2K Kim. I'll try to tweet things out at least once a day, more if I can. I'll tweet the oscillator where the oscillator is at. I'll tweet the charts with the price action with a little bit of commentary. I'll try to do that every single day, but there won't be any video entire next week. All first week of November 2nd, all the way to November 8th, right? That week, entire Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, entire next week, there will be no videos, but I will tweet things out as much as I can, and we'll go from there. But tomorrow, I'll do a little bit more extensive analysis for you guys before I leave on Monday for the week, and trying to figure out how we can handle and process the potential volatility, hecticness might come through the election, and just kind of looking at the overall picture. We'll look at the daily chart. Instead of looking at stocks tomorrow, I'm gonna go through more all the indices and give you kind of a complete recap, and hopefully that will equip you for the coming week and how you should be prepared to face it for the first week of November. Elections on Wednesday, November 4th. So, well, you guys enjoy your evening, and I'll come back for you guys tomorrow night. Good luck trading tomorrow.